Hey guys, this is Steve with Milson Perspective. This is going to be part 2 of 4 covering the load carry systems that I have used at One Shepherd. So if you haven't seen part 1, stop now and go back to that. Provides the basis or the foundation of what we're talking about. It covers LC2 kit. LC2 or Alice gear is going to be the recommended go-to for anybody attending One Shepherd that does not already have a kit that they have vetted on their own, put a lot of hours into making sure that it works the way that they think it's going to. If you haven't done that, do yourself a favor, spend a little bit of money on Alice. You get very high quality US made equipment for pennies on the dollar compared to what it would be worth if it was new on the commercial market today. It's optimized for dismounted patrolling, which is exactly what you're going to be doing primarily at One Shepherd. And it does almost everything really well. So you're not going to go wrong. Start there and then build your kit. If you even decide to go away from it, there's guys that have been doing One Shepherd for 10 years and they still run LC2. So that said, why did I move away from it? Well, like I said, it's optimized for dismounted patrolling. It was designed for the infantry. All the weight is around the waist, which is good. It means that it's more comfortable. The weight transfers directly to your pelvis, so your back isn't having to carry all that extra weight. And then also your torso is not covered, so it's better in the heat. It's not going to trap as much heat. Your clothes are free to move around your torso. You can get rid of a lot of heat that way, and that's going to be really important in the summer semesters. So the downside of that is that you're rather girthy around the hips, right? So that's not a big deal when you're moving through brush as much, as long as you don't have snags incorporated in the way you've set your kit up. Branches and leaves can brush out of the way. Start talking vehicles, seats, and going in and through buildings, not so much. You're going to find yourself bouncing off a lot of things that you didn't realize you can't fit through. A butt pack on your butt in a commercial vehicle seat it's not going to work. You're going to be sitting entirely too far forward. The backrest won't be working correctly. It doesn't work. So I wanted to kind of get a kit that could perform in all environments relatively well. My focus was primarily on modularity, being able to swap components out for the mission. And then secondarily, I wanted to be able to slim down the second line as much as possible. I was realizing that at One Shepherd, compared to some of the environments where I designed my LC2 kit for, the missions were a lot shorter in duration. I didn't need to carry necessarily as much equipment all the time. Reducing some weight would make me faster and more comfortable all the time, so on and so forth. So slimming down and being able to flex the space that I did have for different missions, being able to run different platforms of rifle, different platforms of pistol, run a radio or not, have space from nods on my second line or not, 1 or 2 radios or 0, so on and so forth. I want to be able to plus up to 12 magazines or all the way down to 4. So I put together a fairly broad set of parameters, and you'll see here shortly what I came up with to meet those challenges. Just like in the previous videos, we'll start with what I carry, go through then how I carry it, and the third line ruck type stuff, contents will be covered in the 4th and final video because they're mostly the same across all the kits. So hope you enjoy. So this is very similar to what we see before. The bottom row is the first line. So on my pocket knife, little survival kit. If you did not see part 1 in this series, go back and that stuff, all that is laid out and explained. My wrist GPS and my iPro. Going from left to right, we then have the hydration bladder. I carry a 3-liter bladder. It easily scrunches down to 2 or 1 liters if I want to save weight by carrying less water. I also always carry one of the quick fill adapters for reasons mentioned before. One Shepherd taught me it's extremely important to be able to quickly fill all that stuff, and so the extra steps of having to pull it out and fill it from a tap or water bottles really was just a pain in the butt. So I think it's the UTX or something like that, made by Source, makes it easy. Just, I don't even have to take my kit off. I just walk up, snap that on, hook that, just squeeze it onto either a faucet or any sort of water bottle, and it fills directly into the pack. Next to that is my fighting knife. Retained that. I actually got rid of it for a while, and then was reminded why I need to continue carrying it. Again, it's a good woods tool for building things, and it's a weapon that never runs out of ammo. The camo compact whistle, compass, headlamp, notebook, SOI card, and map are all exactly the same, as are the 6 magazines. I do have this set up again to flex. So I realized that with some of the shorter mission durations that I started to see in kind of more modern and smaller AO operations, where possibly we would get dropped off by a troop transport and only be out for 3 to 5 hours, I started to see that I didn't need to carry as much stuff, and that all kind of goes into all the whole building of this kit. So sometimes it's not uncommon for me to just go out with 4 mags on my rig, plus 1 in the rifle, but this kit can also plus up to quite a bit more than that. You'll see that, but 6 is still kind of the standard go-to. Also have a sidearm and 2 magazines for it, going from right to left across the top. Have an actual IFAK. So at this point in my life, I started to realize that if I'm playing with things that can make holes in people and running around in the dark in the woods, I need to have something to protect myself if I get injured. So I started carrying an actual IFAK and got some training on how to use it. Next to that is a battery carrier, same one as before. The more modern toys that start getting brought along, the more important it is to have spare batteries for them. So that's all I'll say about that. You'll notice that if you watched the last video, I had a full MRE in addition to my little snack packs. And this was just kind of representative. Again, I realized that for shorter mission durations, if I wasn't going to be out for a full 12 or 16 hours, then I could totally do away with that extra weight. Typically, I carry a main entree and a spoon as my emergency ration, and then I just carry snacks that I can shove in my mouth as I'm moving. It makes it so that I don't have to stop and make a fire and warm things up. Yes, it's nice to have warm food, but I realize that I can deal without it for quite some time. Now, there's a caveat to that with operating in cold weather, and that's for another class. So typically I just carry a single main entree with a spoon to eat it, nice and cold and disgusting, and then several snacks, and that's it. That's the whole base fighting load. Now, can other things be added to this? Absolutely. We'll touch on that here in a sec. Okay, so here we have everything all packed up, ready to go. You'll notice that the quote-unquote first line row has grown a little. I typically keep my headlamp and whistle in my uniform pockets. I wouldn't necessarily consider them part of my first line, but that's typically just where they end up. Below that, or above that, is quote-unquote my first line, my belt kit. So I'm left-handed, so my holster's over there on the left. Have 2 reloads for my secondary, my fighting knife, 1 reload for my primary, and my dump bag or dump pouch. I always encourage people to think of a dump pouch as kind of the same thing I did with the 2 magazine pouches on my left side on my LC2 kit. It's just kind of there for whatever you need. So ideally, we'll never do a bolt lock to the rear reload. We'll always be doing partial magazine reloads and reorganizing those magazines, pushing the fullest ones to the quickest areas we can get them, and actually moving rounds into magazines to make full ones over time. So don't think of that as just a magazine dump pouch. That's also there for site exploitation or that last minute thing that somebody hands you that you have to carry on an objective, so on and so forth. Going from there, I have my chest rig. That's a Mayflower Gen 5. I'm not going to go super into detail about the individual components of the chest rig. I've done a lot of work. There's several articles about that out on the Milson's Perspective. Go over there and search for it if you're interested in seeing all the modifications I made to it and little bits and bobs. The way I have it set up is, you'll see I have a grim lock for my gloves. Like Matt was saying, my gloves always go there if they're on my hands, so I don't lose them. Also, that enables me, typically my chest rig is attached to the backpack and everything's all hung up right next to each other. If you want to see how I do that at One Shepherd, come on by the staff mech and see what that looks like. But it's all set up so that I can literally grab and throw it on as I walk out the door. So down on this end is the tourniquet, shears, and the rest of the IFAC 2 magazines. This is my notebook, MAP SOI, and Camel Compact. I forgot to mention that I do carry a multi-tool. That's been very valuable over the years. This is where my compass goes. And then I've got 2 pouches over on this side in front of these 2 magazines that are left empty. So often nods will end up in here if I'm not carrying a radio. If I'm carrying one of the PRC 126s, that goes there. I've got this modified to secure one of those radios. It's the perfect place, keeps the antenna right behind my armpit where I want it, out of the way. And then this can be for snacks or, again, all that other stuff you get handed, frags, whatever. You might be wondering where my food is, and that has to do with some of the modifications I made to this. I have cummerbund flap inserts off of plate carriers back here. So this is normally just, it's a chest rig, so it's 2 rectangles with a zipper in the middle. Nothing fancy. And I've opened up these, what would normally just be very large Velcro top pockets, and put inserts in there. So this is a zipper insert, quiets things down. This is where my food and my extra batteries live. And then this is a free mag insert. So this is how I have capacity for extra magazines. Also, this pouch can carry quite a few extra magazines if I'm really trying to go heavy. And then this also will carry a walkie-talkie type radio or any number of other items. In colder climates, when I'm not running a hydration bladder, typically this is where my water will go, and I'll actually run this with just the harness on the back and no backpack to stay nice and light. So again, it really just depends on what the mission is. Almost always this pack will be on the back. This is the Haley Flat Pack Plus, and I got it because it fits my bladder perfectly. My 3-liter bladder. This is one of their shorter and wider ones. I don't remember what it's actually called, but that, and then the quick detach lives in here for the quick fill adapter. So that's just water normally. What this enables me to do is have space for all of the butt pack type stuff when I do need it. I used to think of expanding backpacks as kind of a novelty, and just be like, okay, why don't you just get a bigger backpack that has good compression straps and cinch it down when you don't need it. Well, part of this kit is focused on being able to be in and around vehicles, in and out of structures. So you'll notice that it's fairly trim around the waist, and
most of the load is carried where it's pretty easy to work through obstacles like that. So I want something that's nice and thin, tied up against my back when it doesn't need to have a bunch of stuff in it. A big baggy backpack, even if it's cinched down with compression straps, is still going to get caught on 1,000 things, especially if it's got molly loops all over it and all that fun. So just in my experience, it was more hassle than it was worth. So I went with the zip expandable bag to where that it is very slick and isn't going to be in the way when I don't want it in the way, but it expands to a pretty decent size. So I could fit an MRE here. This I modified to be the full height. No, that was another backpack. This one might have come that way. But I can put my pop flares, parachute flares, stuff like that in there, or a large map book if I'm carrying a bunch of admin items. And then inside this, I can fit my entire bivy and tarp system along with my cook set and some other things. So I can have more capability than I could with my LC2 rig with this, with less normal bulk, if that makes sense. So on a daily basis, this is less bulky, but it can expand to carry more and be a heavier loadout than the Alice could. So that was kind of the focus on that. Now let's switch gears and talk about armor and ruck integration. Lastly, I wanted to note just a couple quick things. This is how I'll set up this chest rig in the winter when it's too cold for camelbacks. So if I know we're going to be out below 32 degrees, I will typically scale down to 1 liter of water on my person, and that stays there. Also, I mentioned earlier, having the ability to go on those longer missions. Obviously this backpack slims down real nice. You barely notice it's there, or I can put my entire kit in here. So that's my tarp, my sleeping bag, and my overnight kit, and then a non-field strip MRE, and this isn't even remotely close to being full. So this actually turns into a very functional overnight bag once it's unzipped. Okay, so here we see on the left the chest rig attached to the plate carrier via the Mayflower's or Velocity's Swift Clip system, and then the Haley Strategic flat pack is mollied to the back of the plate carrier. This allows the minimum amount of extra bulk while retaining the modularity of being able to keep the plate carrier slick and wearing the load bearing equipment without the plate carrier, because there's times I'd like to do both. So if I need armor but I'm just around the fob, I can wear the plate carrier slick. If I want load carry without the armor weight, then I can run it that way, or I can combine everything. The backpack and chest rig combo can simply go over the plate carrier. It's not terribly bulky, but you do have 2 sets of straps going over your shoulders, which I would prefer not to have to deal with, even though neither of them are padded, so it doesn't create too much extra bulk. Typically, I will clip the chest rig to the front and just wear the backpack. And what that allows me to do is obviously access the stuff in the backpack, or it can go on top of my ruck to enable it to act as the lid of this ruck. I had the ruck modified so the lid comes off, and I've got the Haley Strategic pack modified so it can clip in its place. I've gone on 1 outing with that. It worked extremely well. I'm going to test it more before I go into detail about it, but if you're watching this, then you get to hear about that first. So back to the topic at hand. Think about your body. You wear your pistol belt, your pants belt on your waist, or just below your waist, kind of down on your hips. This is pretty common. It's fine, no big deal. Whenever you wear a chest rig or a plate carrier, it's going to be 1 inch maybe above your belly button. You know, but there's a gap there in between your belt and your plate carrier or your chest rig, and that belt or that gap has to be there to allow you to bend over. If you don't have it, then when you sit down, your chest rig, or if you're wearing a plate carrier, it'll stab you in the chin or come up in front of your chin. I've seen it. It's hilarious. Guys that are wearing too large plates, happens to them all the time. But that gap is actually pretty useful for us if we've got this belt and chest rig system set up to sit right on our body, because the waist belt for the ruck can go right in that gap. So that's one of the critical points about why my first line does not have a single pouch along the back. Everything's right on the sides. That goes underneath the wings on the hip belt that you can see on the ruck, and allows the ruck hip belt to do its job. So I can tighten it down just like I would if I was wearing it without any of this other stuff on, and the system works beautifully together. Now, you have to set everything up to work together in order to make that possible. So your first line can't have big pouches on the back, because with a long, this would be considered a long back style ruck setup, where the ruck comes all the way down to your waist rather than sitting on top of a belt kit. If you're going to set it up that way, you can't have a bunch of pouches on the back of your belt, your first line, and your second line needs to be slick on the back, or be able to be made slick quickly in the field. Okay, so that concludes part 2 of this loadout series. Again, just to recap, the primary focus of this kit was efficient armor integration, modularity between calibers and mission sets, and adding the benefit of being able to slim everything down to work around vehicles and MOUT type environments a little bit more effectively than I could with a bunch of stuff around my waist. So the next installment will be going back to a belt kit and be a modern belt kit. It's what I'm currently working on and kind of finalizing for One Shepherd use. And so I hope you stick around, come back and watch that. Thank you.